Chapter 635. Ji Wei treated her so well, yet she poisoned her own husband. Do you think such a person is pitiful? Murong Yun is dead. Hong Fui was silent for a while. He didn't ask about Murong Yun, but said, "Let's go back to the palace first. We've been out for a while. If we don't go back, I'm afraid the Feng country's emperor will notice something." On the way back to the palace, the man couldn't help asking her, "How did she die? Did you kill her yourself?" "No, I just said something to provoke her. Then she couldn't take the stimulation and hit her head to death." Hong Fui. Listening to your tone, it's like nothing happened. Xin Yueji, do you hate her? Hate, I can't wait for her to die. Only then can I be completely relieved. Hong Fui, after a long time, he sighed, although the Jiyu family has dealt with your Shen family many times, the Jiyu family's methods don't seem to be as ruthless as yours. He's clearly about to die, but you don't even give him a chance to have a good look at the beauties of this world in these last 3 days. You just have to force him to his death so quickly. Truly ruthless and ruthless. He really couldn't understand why Mo Wushang would fall for such a ruthless woman. After returning from Jiyu family, Xin Yueji didn't return to her own palace. Instead, she changed her clothes and went to Huiyang Palace to tell Lu Qingru about this matter. There was no expression on the woman's face, but a trace of emotion flashed across her eyes. She pulled Xin Yueji into her arms and patted her back. "Qin if you want to cry, then cry. I'm here. My tears had already been used up when I was Jiyu Yu Qin. Perhaps the mother-daughter relationship between me and Murong Yun had already disappeared with the past few years. Ru do you know? From the beginning, I wanted to get her to look at me. Later, I was even afraid to see her. I only hoped that she could forget me forever. Only then, can I still survive in Jiyu family. Even when I saw her die in front of me, my heart didn't fluctuate much. It was like looking at a stranger who got the punishment she deserved." "Qin Lu Qingru gently caressed her face. "For the rest of your life, with me by your side, you will never feel lonely again, and you will never feel that you are all alone. I will love you and care about you." "Oh right." Lu Qingru seemed to have suddenly thought of something. "Ru I've already caught the man beside Jiyu Yuyin for you." "You caught him?" "That's right. I've had people keep an eye on your Phoenix Perch Palace's movements at all times, afraid that someone would hurt you. I never thought that this Jiyu Yuyin would actually target you so quickly and send Yu Ying to take your life. Even the people by my side had to expend a lot of effort to catch him, and even suffered some injuries. The people around you are also injured. Don't worry, it's nothing serious. It's just some superficial wounds." "How do you plan to deal with Yu Ying? Should I just kill him to prevent any future troubles, or—" "It's getting late. Have your men send him to my Phoenix Perch Palace. I want to interrogate him personally." "All right." Lu Qingru didn't have any hesitation. "However, this person is sinister and cunning. I've already ordered people to break his meridians. The current him is like a cripple, and he won't be able to cause any trouble. Break his meridians." Chapter 636. To a martial artist, how painful a blow would that be? To Yu Yin, it was worse than death, because when she saved him that year, he was almost in the same situation, just that his meridians were still there, but now, he was probably going to become a cripple. She raised her eyes and looked at the woman beside her. She had a beautiful face and always gave people the feeling that she was delicate and gentle. Xin Yueji did not expect that she would be so swift and fierce when she did things, and even a little cruel. But thinking that she did it for her, even if it was cruel, it was because of her that he became like this, she had no right to judge her. "All right." After talking with Lu Qingru for a while, she bid farewell and left. She could hear from Lu Qingru's words that she wanted to make her stay many times, but she rejected them all. Returning to Phoenix Perch Palace, Shuangxi had already prepared a hot bath for her. After Xin Yueji finished bathing, she saw Yu Yin kneeling in front of the hall. His handsome face did not change, but his black clothes were stained with blood. To the people of the pugilistic world, when one's meridians were destroyed, it was their martial arts that were destroyed, not their limbs. But his martial arts were high, so his body would more or less be damaged. Shun Yueji gave Shuangxi a look and let him leave first. Maybe he felt that Yu Yin was now a cripple and could not hurt his miss at all, so Shuangxi left quickly, without any hesitation. For Jiyu Yuerin's sake, you're still not afraid of death. Since she fell into the hands of Imperial concubine Shun, if you want to kill her, do as you please. I hope that Imperial concubine Shun can let her live. She has nothing now. After I die, she will have no one to rely on, and can no longer hurt you. Yu Yin, let me ask you, if Jiyu Yuyin was still alive, and Jiyu Yuyin asked you to kill her, would you be willing to kill her? Of course not. Yu Yin suddenly raised his head. He was not considered a gentleman, but he had his own moral bottom line. Jiyu Yuyin was his savior. After knowing the truth, it had always been a knot in his heart that could not be untied. Even when he was working for Jiyu Yuyin, his heart was always thinking of her. Obviously, the person who should be his master was Jiyu Yuqin, but he recognized the wrong person and killed his savior with his own hands. If the late empress was still alive, I would definitely regard her as my master. What about Jiyu Yuyin? I like her. Yes, the simplest word was like. Yu Yin looked at her, his expression filled with seriousness. Even if I know that she lied to me, so many years have passed, and I've liked her for so many years. How could this love be so cheap that I no longer like her just because she lied to me? Whether it's right or wrong, there needs to be a process, including liking her. Now, I'm still willing to do anything for her. Do you know why I saved you back then? This sentence made Yu Yin raise his head to look at her. His dark eyes were filled with scrutiny and suspicion. Shun Yueji met his gaze, and did not avoid it at all. No doubt, it was because I saw you lying in a pool of blood. Your body was like a child, helpless and pale, and you looked like me when I was bullied in the Prime Minister's residence, so I saved you regardless of the consequences, even if I had nothing. You were so seriously injured that I did not have money to hire a doctor for you. Chapter 637. There was no way to buy expensive medicine for you. In those 3 days, I could only use the cloth on my body to clean your wounds over and over again to prevent your wounds from festering, getting infected, and bleeding. I didn't have many clothes on me, but for you, I had to find the cleanest clothes and destroy them. For 3 days and 3 nights, I didn't dare to close my eyes. I didn't know if you were dead or alive, but I was also afraid that when you were on your last breath, if I fell asleep, I wouldn't be able to see your needs. She took a step back. But the kindness I've given you has long since faded away the moment you were taken away by Jiyu Yuyin. Because I know that, according to her character, you will definitely look down on me like the servants in the Prime Minister's estate. But I never regretted saving you. At least, I didn't during that period of time. Because the person I saved was myself, not you. You are, Shun Yueji looked at him, her expression was still very calm. Just now, I asked you, if the former Empress and Jiyu Yuyin were in front of you, who would you choose? You won't kill me, but you won't betray Jiyu Yuyin, right? Pain flashed across Yu Yin's handsome face. Even if he understood Shun Yueji's meaning very clearly, when he heard such an unimaginable thing, he didn't show shock and disbelief like others. Instead, he quickly accepted it. His expression was calm, without the slightest bit of surprise. Instead, he lowered his eyes regretfully. If it wasn't for the misunderstanding that year, the person I was loyal to would definitely be you. And the person he fell in love with would also be her. Perhaps, he would love her even more. All these years, no one knew better than him how Jiyu Yuyin had treated him. But he remembered her kindness of saving his life that year, so he had been by her side for so many years without complaint or regret. I'm sorry. There are too many people who have wronged me. Yu Yin, you really are nothing. Because you will never understand the feeling of having something taken away from you. You can't resist, you can't vent, you can only bear it in fear. Only now do I know how useless I was in the past. Because of my cowardice and uselessness, I have lost too many things. She closed her eyes and took a deep breath. You have also received the retribution you deserve. Leave. From today onwards, don't ever appear in the palace again. She saw Yu Ying's originally upright and staggering body suddenly kneel down in front of her. She didn't turn around to look, but she heard him repeat in a hoarse voice, I'm sorry. Then, He struck his palm toward the top of his head. She could almost hear the cruel voice that shouldn't exist. Her head whipped around. Yu Yin looked at her, dark red blood flowing out from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were filled with deep yearning and relief. "I'm sorry, I owe you all of this. I can't betray Jiyu Yuyin, but I can't hurt you or betray you. I owe you all this." Perhaps he liked Jiyu Yuyin, but if he knew that she was still alive, he would definitely convince himself to stay by her side. He thought that the mistake he had made in the past made him fall in love with the wrong person. Then, with the truth to cover up his mistake, he believed that he would fall in love with Shinyueji. The kind of unwavering love, but at the same time, he also knew that he would not have that chance again. For some people, once they missed it, it would really be for the rest of their lives. What he owed her was an apology that he would never be able to finish saying. Another corpse fell silently in front of her. Shinyueji staggered a few steps back. Chapter 638. Now, one by one, they were repenting in front of her, using their lives to make up for it, as if she was so cruel. She suddenly smiled, and there was a touch of sarcasm at the corner of her mouth. Since that was the case, she might as well be more thorough. Only Jiyu Yuyin was left. "Guards! Your Highness." When Shuangxi came in and saw the man on the ground, there was no extra expression on her face. Without a change in expression, she stepped forward and poured some medicine onto Yu Ying's still warm corpse. Seeing that his corpse was quickly melting into a pool of blood, she then looked towards Shinyueji. "This fellow is dead. Your Highness, he didn't do anything to you, did he?" "No. If he's dead, then he's dead. Who asked him to listen to Jiyu Yuyin and want to kill you? I believe that if concubine Ru didn't find out early, who knows how much you would have suffered in the hands of this man. Is His Majesty back?" "Yes, Eunuch Jiao specially came to pass a message, saying that His Majesty has already settled his official affairs and is rushing to His Majesty's side." "Your Highness, you haven't eaten anything yet, so this servant will order the imperial kitchen to make something to eat. Since His Majesty is here, you can eat with His Majesty." Shinyueji didn't refuse. "Okay, you go and prepare first." In a day, because of her, 2 people died. Now, she didn't remember to mess with Jiyu Yuyin. To her, the current Jiyu Yuyin had no value at all. Furthermore, after hearing Jiyu Mujua's words in the Jiyu family's dungeon, he probably hated Jiyu Yuyin to the bone. Whether she lived or died, he probably wouldn't even bother to ask a single question. When the servants in the imperial study brought the food to the table, Feng Jiuqing also came. Seeing the servants of Fengqi Palace kneeling on the ground, Shinyueji hurriedly knelt down. But halfway, the man gently held her hand, smiled and looked at her. "Imperial concubine doesn't need to be so polite. Didn't I tell you before? You're injured, so you don't need to bow when you see me in the future. Your concubine is injured, but it's not to the extent that I can't walk. Previously, your concubine was still running around in the imperial study and Huayang Palace. Now that His Majesty is here, saying that your concubine can't bow because I'm unwell, this is deceiving His Majesty, and I will be convicted." "You." The young emperor could not help but laugh as he scratched her nose. He pulled her to sit on a round chair and gave her a piece of vegetable. "Eat something to fill your stomach first. Later, Jun will take you to see something." What is it that made His Majesty so mysterious? Looking at the man's mysterious look, Shinyueji swept away the unhappiness in her heart and pretended to be curious. When the imperial consort sees it, she will naturally know what it is. Hearing this, Shinyueji quickly stuffed a few mouthfuls of rice into her mouth and wiped her mouth. "Emperor, this concubine is full." It was true that she had not eaten for a long time, but because of Murong Yun and Yu Ying's matter, she did not have much of an appetite. Afraid that Feng Jiuqing would notice something, she could only pretend to eat a few mouthfuls. The young emperor couldn't help but frown. "Why are you eating so little? I haven't had much appetite recently. Maybe it's because the wounds on my body haven't healed yet. I'm afraid that if I eat too much, the wounds will easily split open." Shinyueji casually found an excuse to brush him off. Sure enough, seeing that the man was not fooled, he looked at her funny. "What kind of reason is this?" With that, he gave Shinyueji another bowl of clean rice. If you're full, Jin will take you there. If you're not full, Jin won't take you there. Chapter 639. Your Majesty, Shin Yueji pouted. She had no choice but to pick up the bowl and put it into her mouth again. Jiao Dezhong could tell that she was being perfunctory, so he couldn't help but say, Your Highness, among all the concubines I have seen, you are the first one the emperor has served you with rice. Just this honor alone was absolutely unprecedented. So, Your Highness, you can't be so willful and refuse to eat it. Unexpectedly, Shin Yueji was stubborn to the end. Even after hearing Jiao Dezhong's words, Shin Yueji still put down the rice that she had eaten a few mouthfuls, wiped her mouth and said, I'm full. Feng Zhouqing glanced at the rice that she had eaten a few more mouthfuls, smiled slightly, took a clean bowl, and filled it for her. He pushed it in front of her and said, Since Imperial Concubine likes me to fill rice for you like this, as long as you can eat a few more mouthfuls, I am willing. Hearing this, Shin Yueji blushed, and she wanted to bury her face in the bowl. Since Feng Zhouqing had said so, how could she continue to be perfunctory? Even if she had no appetite, she still forced herself to eat a few mouthfuls of rice until she was about to throw up, and then she pushed the bowl in front of her away. Seeing that she was almost done this time, the man stopped being perfunctory and considerately poured her a glass of water. Why is it only rice and not dishes? Drink some tea, be careful not to choke. Shin Yueji obediently drank the tea that he handed to her. After drinking, seeing that the man was also done, she couldn't help but lean her head over and look at him mysteriously. Your Majesty, what treasure are you going to show me? Come. Let's go. The emperor glanced at her and smiled, but he didn't answer her. Shin Yueji followed behind the man, got on the dragon carriage, and went to the imperial garden. She had been to the imperial garden many times in the past and there were all kinds of exotic flowers and plants. In the past, she saw them because they were fresh and interesting, but now that she had seen them many times, she felt that they were nothing. Shin Yueji didn't look at them too much, but followed behind the man until they walked to the end of the imperial garden and saw 2 dancing peacocks. They were peacocks, but they didn't look like peacocks, because they were colorful, like phoenixes, but also it was like a combination of a phoenix and a peacock. Beside the 2 peacocks stood a young man. He wore a mask on his face and his appearance could not be seen clearly. However, from his slender figure, one could tell that he was a young man. Imperial Concubine, this phoenix peacock was specially requested by the Southern Mountain Emperor to gift to you. As a gift for this empress. This caused Shin Yueji to be slightly stunned. It was said that the Emperor of Nanyu was cruel and lustful. He had even attacked the Feng country quite a while ago. She did not ask about the matter that Feng Zhouqing had sent people to settle, so she did not know how it went. But now, when he looked at the unfamiliar man in front of him, if the phoenix peacock before him was a gift from the Southern Mountain Emperor, then the person who tamed the beast before him should be someone from the Southern Mountain Emperor. What did Feng Zhouqing mean by this? How could he allow someone from Nanyu to appear in the territory of the Feng nation? Thinking of this, she looked at Feng Zhouqing again. Your Majesty? Forgive her, she really did not understand what Feng Zhouqing meant. The Feng nation and Southern Mountain have already established a cooperative relationship. In a few days, the Emperor of Southern Mountain will lead an army with me to attack the northern underworld. What? Shin Yueji was shocked. Almost immediately, her heart skipped a beat. Your Majesty. Chapter 640. She didn't care that there were people from Southern Mountain here. As a favored concubine, she naturally didn't care about the people from Southern Mountain. You clearly know that Emperor Nanyu is cruel and bloodthirsty. He's a completely incompetent ruler. Before this, he has killed countless loyal guards of our Feng country who protected our country. Sure enough, before she could finish her sentence, the masked man that she saw earlier coldly said, I'm afraid that Imperial Consortium has some prejudice against my emperor. That's all in the past. Even the Feng country's emperor has said that he won't mention the past again. Right now, our Southern Mountain sect and the Feng country are in a cooperative relationship. Since we are in a cooperative relationship, we are allies. His Majesty will not harm his own allies. Or does Imperial Concubine Shun have ulterior motives for saying these words at this time? How dare you? Shen Yueji shouted angrily. This person was just a subordinate, yet he dared to be so rude to her. Feng Jiuqing smiled and patted the back of her hand, comforting her. Yueji, Qing Xian is right. Feng Country and Southern Mountain have established a good relationship. The Nanyu Emperor has also personally apologized for harming our Feng Country's soldiers. But she wanted to say something, but she saw Feng Jiuqing looking at her. His gentle eyes didn't seem to be as good-tempered as before. After knowing him for so many years, how could she not know that he was angry? Desolation filled her heart and she suddenly smiled. But the northern underworld is not a weak country. The three countries are the three strongest countries in the world. Even if the Emperor and the Emperor of Southern Mountain work together, it will not be easy to attack the northern underworld. Your Highness, you don't have to worry about this. According to what I know, there's already internal strife in the northern underworld. Not only are there my Southern Mountain's trusted subordinates, but there are also many of the Feng Nation's Emperor's trusted subordinates. It'll be easy to attack Northern Sea. We just need time. Internal conflict in Northern Sea? She suddenly remembered that Mo Wushang returned to Northern Sea to deal with the internal conflict. No matter if he succeeded or not, it wouldn't benefit Northern Sea. Once these traitorous subordinates were disbanded, then, the gap in the northern underworld was not something that could be filled in a day and night. Furthermore, I've already investigated the mysterious emperor of the northern underworld. He's the regent of your Feng country. Speaking till here, the masked man suddenly smiled and his gaze fell on Shen Yueji. That gaze that could see through people fell on her body. If I did not remember wrongly, before Imperial Consort Shen entered the palace, she seemed to have a relationship with the regent. Qing Xian. The emperor's tone was deep and displeased. His beautiful eyes narrowed as he held Shen Yueji's hand. She is my woman now. Qing Xian consciously took a step back. Yes, Your Majesty, Qing Xian overstepped. Qing Xian was thinking of the big plan. After all, the incident of Imperial Consort Shen being infatuated with the Prince Regent was a hot topic in the capital city. Who did not know that Imperial Consort Shen was infatuated with the Prince Regent? After so many years of affection, Shen Guifei suddenly abandoned it and entered the palace. I am only curious, but I am even more worried about you, Emperor. Feng Jiuqing's mind was steady, so how could he not understand the meaning behind Qingshuan's words? However, he changed his usual style and smiled faintly. Today, I brought Imperial Consort out to relax. This phoenix peacock is rumored to dance when it hears the sound. Qing Xian, play a song for my beloved Imperial Consort. Chapter 641. Qing Xian looked plainly at Shen Yueji, his eyes filled with unconcealable mockery. He replied respectfully, Yes, Your Majesty. The legendary phoenixes and peacocks that danced to the sound of the flute were indeed a rare sight. Just these two beautiful phoenixes and peacocks were already very mesmerizing. When they flew into the air and then tilted down, it was a beautiful sight to behold. Shen Yueji did not have any admiration in her eyes. She looked at the young man playing the flute in front of her. This man was from Southern Mountain. She could see that whether it was his words or his expression, all he had for Feng Jiuqing was respect and reverence. Thinking about it, Southern Mountain had been arrogant for so many years. Who had he truly respected, and who had he feared? But what she could not understand was, why would such an evil country, which even Feng Jiuqing hated, cooperate with them to deal with the Dark North Kingdom? She looked at the handsome man beside her. The man before her was becoming more and more incomprehensible to her. In the past, she hesitated because he could not be a good husband, but he was definitely a good emperor. But now, even this bit of understanding was completely erased from the bottom of her heart. He was no longer a good emperor. Why would he cooperate with a country like Southern Mountain that went back on its words? Was he not afraid that when the Dark North Kingdom was destroyed, they would turn around and deal with him? If the two countries went to war, who would suffer the most? Didn't he love his people like they were his own children? Even if they were to cooperate, it should be the Feng country working with the Dark North Kingdom's emperor, not Southern Mountain. The one who should be destroyed the most should be Southern Mountain. Thinking of this, Shen Yueji's heart was in a mess. Mo Wushang had only returned to the Dark North Kingdom for a short while, and now something like this happened. No, she had to tell him about this as soon as possible, and from Feng Zhouqing's tone and expression, when he found out that Mo Wushang was the Dark North Kingdom's emperor, he was not surprised at all. So, he knew all along, or else, Mo Wushang's position as the regent of the Feng country was on equal footing with him. How could he be so indifferent and let a regent ride over his head? So, he knew all along. The song came to an end. Qing Xian casually put away the flute and looked at Shen Yueji. When the other women saw the phoenix and peacock dancing, they all revealed a look of surprise. Only Imperial concubine Shen, I see that you seem to have a lot on your mind. You don't even pay attention to the phoenix and peacock. Shen Yueji laughed coldly. You, Nan Yu, have done all sorts of evil deeds and went back on your word. I just don't understand why the emperor would cooperate with you. I can't understand why His Majesty would willingly come down and cooperate with Southern Mountain to deal with Dark North. Even if there is an alliance, it should be between the Feng Nation and the North Sea to get rid of your evil Nan Yu. After saying that, she turned around and left without even looking at the two people in front of her. Qing Xianqi's expression changed. If it wasn't for the mask covering his face, he would have said sarcastically and coldly, Your Majesty, I, Nan Yu, am sincerely cooperating with your Feng country. As for Imperial concubine Shen, what does she mean by saying such words at this time? Luckily, when His Majesty found out that Imperial concubine Shen is the Feng nation's emperor's favorite concubine, he specially asked me to give this phoenix and peacock to her as a pet to play with. What a waste of His Majesty's good intentions. If I knew that this Imperial concubine Shen didn't know what's good for her. Even if she doesn't know what's good for her, she is still my Imperial concubine of the Feng nation. It is not up to a foreign envoy like you to lecture her. Chapter 642. Your Majesty. Qing Xian looked up at him in disbelief. He really found it hard to believe that the Feng Kingdom's emperor, who didn't like women, would really disregard him, an important envoy of the two kingdoms, for a woman. This was something that had never happened in the past. How much Feng Zhouqing cared about his empire, and how, Feng Zhouqing smiled, Imperial Consort Shen is the daughter of the Shen family. She has been spoiled by old General Shen since she was young. After entering the palace, I don't want her to be bound by the complicated etiquette of the palace, so I specially ordered her to behave the same in the palace as she does in the residence. Just now, Imperial Consort Shen was being honest. I hope Qing Xian won't take it to heart. Since Your Majesty has said so, what else can I say? However, this disobedient woman has to be punished. Otherwise, she will always be riding on top of us. The Feng country's emperor's indulgence towards disobedient women can't be compared to His Majesty. You should know that His Majesty has always treated disobedient women by breaking their bones and peeling their skin. Qing Xian, Feng country, and Nan, you are only in a cooperative relationship. If you want this cooperative relationship to continue, don't meddle in my private affairs. Yes, Qing Xian has overstepped his boundaries. When she returned to Feng Qi Palace, she almost didn't need to shout for Hong Fui. She could see Hong Fui sitting on her chaise longue, drinking tea and eating leisurely. What's wrong? You only went out with the emperor for a date. Which little bitch offended you? What? Did she steal your emperor away? Listening to his sarcastic words, it was as if she had really betrayed Mo Wushang. She went forward and overturned the teapot on the table, pouring all the water on him. Hong Fui was shocked and quickly jumped away. Fortunately, he jumped quickly. Otherwise, he would have been scalded by the boiling water. At the thought of his delicate skin, it was all because of this cruel woman that his skin was almost ruined. He gritted his teeth in anger. Shen Yueji, are you crazy? This is your own business. Why are you venting on me? You still have the cheek to say such sarcastic word. What have you been doing in the palace recently? Did you not know that Nan Yu's envoy has come to the palace? Southern Mountain's envoy? Hong Fui sat down steadily and looked at her seriously. The envoy of Feng Kingdom? When did you come? Why didn't this young master know? Inexplicably, Shen Yueji's glare made his heart flutter. He covered his mouth awkwardly and coughed. Speaking of the women in the imperial harem, they all lack men. I think your emperor has neglected them for too long, so when they see me, they don't want me to leave. You know, I have to go to many women's chambers in a day. It's very troublesome, just running back and forth. Before he could finish speaking, Shen Yueji threw another teacup at him. This time, it hit his forehead. Hong Fui did not react in time and was hit on the head. At that time, his entire head was red and swollen, and blood was faintly oozing out. He gritted his teeth in pain, and even his face was livid. He stared at Shen Yueji fiercely. If this young master's beautiful face is ruined, even if Mo Wushang protects you, I will still cripple you. Shen Yueji did not put his threat in her eyes at all. She smiled coldly. So you don't know that Nan Yu's envoy has come to the palace. So, all your thoughts are on the women in the imperial harem. Chapter 643. Hong Fui was speechless. He quickly retorted, "Don't talk nonsense. I'm afraid that they'll be lonely. You know that I'm good at being considerate." "Oh right, you said that Southern Mountain's envoy came to Phone Country. What's going on? What else could it be?" Shen Yueji sat on the round chair and looked at him. She told him everything that happened in the imperial garden. Soon, Hong Fui's handsome face became serious. Feng Jiuqing is working with Southern Mountain's emperor to deal with the North Underworld. No wonder so many officials in the North Underworld had internal strife. They've already become their people. However, looking at their posture, it's obvious that they've been planning this for a long time. It doesn't seem like they just formed an alliance. No, it should be a recent alliance. Although I don't know why they formed an alliance, Southern Mountain was wantonly killing Phone Country's soldiers before this. This can't be fake. Before this, Phone Country and Southern Mountain didn't have any contact. I think they formed an alliance because they each sent their confidants to the North Underworld's court. Now that the matter has been exposed and the time is ripe, they thought of forming an alliance to get rid of the North Underworld first. Speaking of this, Shen Yueji couldn't help but worry about Mo Wushang. Now that he was in the North Underworld, no matter how powerful he was, it was still dangerous for him to face the pursuit of two strong countries. "Hong Fui, what should we do now?" They only said that they're going to attack the North Underworld, but they didn't say the exact time. "You should use this time to return to the North Underworld and tell Mo Wushang about this and discuss with him." Hong Fui's handsome face became serious. "If I return to the North Underworld, what will you do? When you weren't here, you didn't see anything happen to me. Now that Yu Yin is dead, Jiu Yuyin can't even protect herself. How can she deal with me? Besides, Ru is protecting me. I'll be fine." Hearing her mention Lu Qingru, Hong Fui suddenly laughed. "What are you laughing at?" "Oh right, how could I forget about that woman? You forgot that Shenming sect is also North Underworld's people. Although they don't interfere with the royal family's matters, it doesn't mean that they can watch their country be occupied by others." "Shenming sect. That's right." Hong Fui nodded and stood up from the chaise lounge. The Shenming cult is considered a force. Its power can be said to be on par with the royal family of the North Dark Kingdom. If the Southern Mountain and the Foam Kingdom work together, then if the Shenming cult and the North Dark Kingdom work together, it will be a confrontation between the strongest forces of the two countries. In other words, the people of the Shenming cult are good at the doppelganger technique. One person can create several people, and each of them is very strong. Even if they really fight, no matter how strong the forces of the Foam Kingdom and the Southern Mountain are, they may not be a match for the Shenming cult's doppelganger technique. "But, didn't you say that the mysterious Dark Sect never interferes in personal grudges? If Dark North is gone, and Dark North's country is occupied by another country, do you think the mysterious Dark Sect will sit still and wait for death? Although they don't interfere in the affairs of others, with the Dark North Emperor holding the fort, at least they are doing well in the Dark North Kingdom. You have to know that once a person has lived in one place for a long time, they will get used to it. It is very difficult to start anew in a new place. It is the same for the Shenming sect." Chapter 644. As long as you spread the news that the Feng Kingdom and Nan Yu are working together to attack the North Underworld, I believe that the Shenming sect will not ignore it. However, I will have to rely on you. Shen Yueji understood what he meant. You want me to personally tell Ru Ru about the collaboration between Feng Joqing and Nan Yu? I have told you before that Lu Qingrou's identity is not simple. Even the Shenming sect in the North Underworld can be used by her. Don't you know that? It was not that she did not know, but because she knew it too well, she did not dare to doubt her. Including the time when they were dealing with Yu Ying. Yu Ying's martial arts were so powerful that he could come and go as he pleased in the palace without anyone noticing. The embroidered secret guards of the palace were all just decorations to him. Sometimes, she even wondered what kind of person would be able to deal with Yu Ying. In the end, Lu Qingru said that she could handle it. In less than a day, her people destroyed Yu Yin's martial arts and broke his meridians. She was shocked. When Lu Qingru told her all this, she could not help but doubt Hong Fui's words. She was willing to believe the truth of Hong Fui's words, but the person was Lu Qingru. She had done so much for her. She just did not want to doubt her anymore. That would make her feel that she had wronged her. What do you think is her relationship with the Shenming sect? According to my guess, the only person who can command the Shenming sect is the master of the sect. The information within the Shenming sect is very tight. Even if I spend a lot of effort to investigate, I might not be able to find any clues. However, she has a close relationship with the Shenming sect. If we really want to talk about her identity, she should be half a master of the Shenming sect. Otherwise, the Shenming sect in the North Underworld would not stay here and listen to her orders because of her. However, I have heard some rumors that the Shenming sect is dominated by women. The sacred mother of the Shenming sect is old, and rumor has it that she has a daughter who is wandering outside. I wonder. Previously, he had also guessed in this direction, but he quickly rejected it. If Lu Qingru is the mystic dark cult saintess, the mystic dark cult is currently in need of manpower. As a candidate for the mystic dark cult successor, there's no reason for her to stay here and not return. In any case, I only know that she has a close relationship with the Shenming sect. As for her identity, I don't know. However, according to our guess, if you tell her about the collaboration between the Feng Nation and Nan Yu, I believe she will tell the mysterious dark sect. At that time, you won't have to worry about what will happen to that fellow. Seeing that she got up, Hong Fui could not help but remind her again. However, there is something that I need to tell you. I always feel that Lu Qingru has ulterior motives towards you. Otherwise, she would not have helped you time and time again. I think that you still need to be on guard. It is better not to be so close to her. Shen Yueji frowned. She won't hurt me. Hong Fui suddenly laughed. I did not say that she would hurt you. I seem to have forgotten to tell you something. The Shenming sect is led by women. Moreover, there is a saying in the pugilistic world that the women of the Shenming sect like other women. The men are only left to work for the Shenming sect to hide from the public. It is just to cover their ugly behavior. Shen Yueji couldn't help but wonder how much hypocrisy was mixed into his love for her. Was it for the power of her Shen family? Can it be solved? I can solve it, but I can't. This Phoenix Peacock's bewitching ability is very strong, and it is only effective on women. You should go to the Huiyang Palace and ask Lu Qingru to help you. After all, she is a member of the Shenming cult, and the people of the Shenming cult are the best at solving these bewitching evil arts. I understand. Hong Fui could not help but ask when he saw Shen Yueji stand up. Chapter 646. When Mo Wushang has finished dealing with the matters in the Northern Underworld, you will come with me to the Northern Underworld. According to Feng Joqing's thoughts and means, I'm afraid that Mo Wushang's return this time is no doubt a wolf entering the tiger's mouth. If I leave, according to Feng Joqing's means, do you think he will let the Shen family go? Hong Fui smiled. What he cares about is undoubtedly not this beautiful country and prosperity. Mo Wushang is waiting for your answer. If you agree, He has thousands of ways to bring you back to the northern underworld. The choice is in your hands, not Feng Jiuqing. What Mo Wushang was waiting for was nothing more than a sentence from her. Huiyang Palace Ji what's wrong with you? Why is your face so pale? Seeing Shen Yueji coming to her with a pale face as if she would leave her at any time, Lu Qingru was even more shocked. She didn't care about Lu Hui and Shuang Shi and hurriedly went forward to support her. Shen Yueji's palms trembled slightly. From the time she talked to Hong Fui in Phoenix Perch Palace until now, it was only a short time. Her heart suddenly beat fiercely, faintly feeling that something was going to happen. Her whole person was also extremely exhausted, that kind of feeling, as if her soul had been sucked out. Lu Qingru's face changed, almost without Shen Yueji saying anything. Hui quickly, go and get some hot water, I want to bathe concubine Shen. Although Lu Hui didn't know what happened, seeing Shen Yueji's appearance, her heart also became nervous. Who didn't know that the current concubine Shen was the most favored woman of the emperor? If anything happened to her in this Huiyang palace, she was afraid that the concubine would not be able to escape from the responsibility. Without any hesitation, Lu Hui hurriedly and respectfully went to do as she was told. Concubine, what's wrong with you? Are you feeling uncomfortable? Seeing Shen Yueji like this, Shuang Shi was also worried. Concubine Ru, what happened to my concubine? Why did it become like this? When she came she was clearly fine. She really couldn't understand. If anything happened to the concubine under her eyes, how could she explain it to the general and madam? Hearing Shuang Shi's worried voice, Lu Qingru's face immediately turned cold and looked at her coldly. Ji what's wrong? I also want to ask you, as her confidant maid, your martial arts is also considered the best in this palace. Since you are by her side, why don't you know when she was infected with the Phoenix Gu? Phoenix concubine? Shuang Shi did not understand. Concubine Phoenix? She looked at Lu Qingru with a face full of shock and suddenly remembered, His Majesty brought Her Highness to the Imperial Garden today, saying that he had something good to give to her. His Majesty and her ladyship went in a dragon carriage and didn't allow this servant to follow. This servant thought that since her ladyship was following His Majesty, there shouldn't be any problems. After all, the emperor was now very fond of the imperial concubine. The people in the harem and even the people in the capital knew that the degree of the emperor's love for imperial concubine Shen was now completely higher than the little daughter of the Jiyu family who was once the sole favorite in the harem. Because of this, Shuang Shi was relieved to hand over her concubine to the emperor, because she knew that the emperor would not hurt her, but who would have thought? The envoy of Nan Yu presented a pair of dancing phoenix peacocks to concubine Shen. This matter had long been spread in the imperial palace. It was not a rare thing at all. Almost immediately tears streamed down her cheeks. Concubine Ru, this servant begs you, quickly save my concubine, nothing must happen to her. Chapter 647. She knelt in front of Lu Qingru, her face full of worry and anxiety. You don't need to beg, I will save him. She would care for her Qin why would she need someone else to beg her to save him? She did not look at Shuang Shi who was kneeling on the ground, but her gaze fell on Shen Yueji's pale face. She had already fainted at this moment. Her pale face reminded her of the helpless her from before. There was not a single trace of blood on her pale face, it was as white as a piece of paper, as if it would leave her at any time. She subconsciously clenched her hand, her tears were like a kite with a broken string, flowing down uncontrollably. I'm sorry, Qin I promised you that I will protect you well in the future, I will not allow anyone to hurt you, but in the end, you were still killed by that man. Since you know that he only has the country in his eyes, why do you still give in to him, choose to believe him again and again, and not be vigilant? Do you still have him in your heart? That's right, her Qin definitely had him in her heart. She had loved him for so many years, and in all these years, her heart had never changed. She loved him wholeheartedly, to the point where she couldn't control herself. She loved him so much that she lost everything, even her own life. But Qin you only see your own feelings for him, what about mine? You can't bear to see him, you compromise again and again, have you ever thought about me? Why did I do it? I've done so much, but who am I doing it for? Her hand, gently stroked Shen Yueji's pale face, her expression full of longing and pain. I only hope to see you happy every day. This is what I want to see. I want to see you happy every day, really just happy every day. Tears flowed into her mouth, it tasted bitter, but she did not seem to feel it. She kept staring at Shen Yueji's pale face. When Lu Hui struggled to snort, Shuangshi hurriedly stood up to help. When Shuangshi saw her posture and was about to step forward to help Shen Yueji take off her clothes, she glanced at him coldly. That cold gaze was like a knife. Shuangshi was so frightened that he immediately retracted his hand and looked at her with disbelief and some fear. It was rumored that Hua Young Palace's concubine Ru was as weak as the wind. She had never been so strict with her servants. Even though Hua Young Palace didn't have many servants, there would always be some reckless servants who came to curry favor with her. In particular, she was able to obtain the protection of the Ru family. The emperor had specially ordered that all the glory, splendor, wealth and rank should be based on her current identity. No one was allowed to act presumptuously. But the current Lu Qingru, he didn't know if it was double happiness's misconception, but she actually gave him a feeling that she was protecting her treasures to prevent others from coveting them. When she reached out to take off her ladyship's clothes, her ladyship was glaring at her with a cold and bloodthirsty gaze, as if she would really kill her if she didn't pull her hand back. Concubine Ru. Concubine Ru, when her ladyship bathed in the past, this servant was always by her side. Look, with me here, there's no need for you. Perhaps it was because she felt that her words had gone too far. Lu Qingrou's expression softened, and she carefully held Shen Yueji in her arms. Right now, your empress is in a special period, nothing can go wrong. Leave her to me, all of you can withdraw. Yes. Chapter 648. Shuangshi didn't want to back down, but seeing Lu Qingru like this, she couldn't force her. After all, it was related to her concubine's safety. She heard her say, "Many thanks to Concubine Ru. Concubine Ru's kindness to my family's young miss. This servant will tell the general and madam about it when we return." No need. After leaving the main hall, Shuangshi stood guard outside. She didn't know what happened inside, but she kept an eye on everything inside. Why didn't I know that your concubine knows how to detoxify poisons? She pulled Lu Hui, who also came out from inside. Lu Hui blinked her eyes and replied honestly, "Actually, newbie doesn't know either." In the past, when Master and Furen were still alive, young Miss had never learned this kind of thing. Maybe. Her expression suddenly changed, as if she thought of something bad. Maybe it's because of those people. Hearing her mention those people, Shuangshi quickly stopped doubting. Yes, the martial world didn't lack these strange people. At that time, Lu Qingru was involved with so many people, it was hard to say if she didn't know a few people who were good at detoxifying poisons. But Your Majesty, you treat my concubine so well, why did you harm her life? She really couldn't understand. These days, the emperor had been treating the imperial concubine very well. As servants, they had all seen it with their own eyes. It was many times better than Jiyu Yuyin. But he was the emperor of a country. How did he know something that even Lu Qingru knew? He obviously did it on purpose. Especially after knowing the danger of the phoenix and peacock dance, she felt a lingering fear. Since ancient times, the emperor's heart was hard to predict. Now, she finally saw it clearly from Feng Jiuqing. Son-in-law was still the best. But now, he was not in Feng country. If something happened to her concubine, what would she do? When Shen Yueji woke up, what he saw was the beautiful little face in front of him that was filled with worry. She felt a little dizzy. She reached out to touch her forehead, but when her hand was in midair, it was pressed down by an equally fair hand. Only after taking a look at Lu Qingru did she realize that at some point in time, Lu Qingrou's body had already been pierced with all kinds of silver needles. The silver needles were very thin, but there were at least 100 of them on her body, and they gave off a piercing and numbing pain. Bear with it for now. This is used to get rid of the phoenix GU in your body. Looking at Shen Yueji's appearance, Lu Qingru also did not feel good. If she could, how she wished that these silver needles would pierce into her body. She really did not want to let her suffer even the slightest bit of pain or harm. Am I poisoned? Yes. Lu Qingru nodded. It's the parasites of the two phoenixes and peacocks that Nan Yu sent as tribute. Rumor has it that in order to punish his disobedient concubines, the Emperor of Nan Yu would always let Qing Xian play a tune, and the two phoenixes and peacocks would dance to the sound of the flute. When those disobedient women see it, the degree of the phoenix parasite in their bodies would be pushed up due to the flute's intensity. If it's light, their skin would break, and if it's heavy, their skin would fester and they would die. These women will be like puppets. Their consciousness will gradually dissipate, and they will gradually recognize others as their masters. This is the power of the phoenix peacock. I never thought that the Emperor of Southern Peak would dare to give you such a poisonous thing. Qin. She grabbed Shen Yueji's hand. Do you know? Fortunately, you came in time and was discovered by me in time. Otherwise, you would really die again. Chapter 649. The Phoenix GU will enter your organs within 6 hours and stay in your body. As time goes by, you will become like those women in the rumors. Feng Zhouqing is a complete hypocrite. He wants to kill you. He treats you well just because you are Shen, his daughter. Qin, he wants to get rid of you through someone else. Don't you understand? That way, even if the matter was exposed, he could very well push the blame onto the Southern Peak Emperor. That way, the true culprit who killed you would be the Southern Peak Emperor. Based on how much Shun he doted on you, he would definitely risk his life for you. This is exactly what Feng Zhouqing wants to see. What he wants is a madman who doesn't care about anything, a madman who would disregard his own life and death to avenge you. I know. You know? There was no change in Shen Yueji's expression. On the contrary, Lu Qingru was afraid that she would fall into this man's love again and become emotional. Shen Yueji nodded. Yes, I know. So you don't have to worry about me. I really don't have any feelings for him anymore. It's not that I wasn't prepared this time, it's not that I wasn't vigilant. It's just that I couldn't be on guard at all. You know, this is all unexpected. I don't even know what happened, nor have I heard of the Phoenix Peacock of Southern Mountain. In the past, I have never come into contact with these things. How did the rumors from the faraway Southern Mountain reach me? So, after knowing that I was tricked, I came to you. Hearing this, Lu Qingru finally smiled and touched her face. Qin, you know that relying on me is the best way to repay me. Because you trust me from the bottom of your heart. You know that I won't hurt you, right? Yes, I trust you. Shen Yueji pursed her lips. There's one more thing I want to tell you. Qin, I'm listening. Today at the Imperial Garden, the envoy of Southern Mountain came to the Feng Nation because Feng Zhouqing wants to work with them to attack the North Sea. Don't attack the North Sea? Lu Qingru suddenly smiled. They seemed to have forgotten that the Xianming sect was also part of the North Sea. He seemed to have forgotten even more. In the future, she would bring her Qin back to the Northern Underworld Kingdom. To her, the Northern Underworld Kingdom was her and Qin's future home. How could she let them destroy their home? Don't worry, Qin. Beiming will be fine. Have you forgotten? I've asked you before, do you like Dark North? When you're done with the matters in the Feng Nation, you have to return to the Northern Underworld with me. We'll live there forever. That way, no one can bully you, and no one can separate us. Qingru, tell me, what are you still hiding from me? To be able to look down on the alliance of two powerful countries, it was enough to show that Hong Fui did not lie to her at all. Lu Qingru was indeed lying to her. Before Mo Wushang left, he left Hong Fui by my side. Hong Fui and that person beside you had also fought. You should know about this matter, right? Lu Qingru's expression did not change, but there seemed to be a flash of panic in her eyes. Xin, tell me honestly, what is your relationship with the mysterious dark sect? Chapter 650. Do you know that if you don't tell me this, I will always think that you are still entangled with those people? Otherwise, my mother is the Xianming sect's Holy Mother, and I am the future successor of the Xianming sect, the Holy Lady. Are you really the Holy Lady of the Xianming sect? But your Lu family. The Lu family was once a subordinate of the Xianming sect. That woman fell in love with another man and betrayed the sect. Coincidentally, my mother was there too. Because she made a huge mistake, she used the last bit of her authority to send me to that woman. She guaranteed that I would live a carefree life. I didn't know about this at the time. She raised her head and looked at Shen Yueji. Think about it. In this world, which parent would be willing to sacrifice the lives of more than 100 members of the Lu family to die for me? Among them were their own son and daughter. But in order to save me, they sacrificed their lives. Qin I found out later that they used the lives of their entire family to keep me alive because of my identity. Because of my identity, they couldn't let me die. They had to sacrifice everything they had to protect me. First, they owed my mother a favor. Second, they were the subordinates of the Xianming sect. No one from the Xianming sect was allowed to betray the sect. If they had any thoughts of betrayal, they would bleed from their orifices and die. So that's how it is. Then you, not long after you died, the left protector of the Xianming sect found me and told me my identity. As you said, the Xianming sect needs you to go back and take over. Why did you stay? She could almost understand why she could secretly control so many powerful people and the men she had affairs with in the Jianghu. Since her identity was already so powerful, why did she still have affairs with those men? As if she could see the suspicion in her heart, she said, Qin you can think of me as a lowly person, or you can think of me as someone who abandoned myself. Even if the left protector could help me with everything, I still wanted to avenge you with my own strength. So, I asked the left protector to do this. After all, there are many things to investigate. For example, the matter between Murong Yun and Qianhe happened more than 20 years ago. Even the left protector couldn't find any clues. I found out about this from someone in the Jianghu. Qin I didn't mean to hide it from you. She couldn't help but hold Shen Yueji's hand tightly. She was deeply afraid that Shen Yueji would say that she hated her. I'm sorry. I didn't expect to have such an identity. It's hard for me to accept it. I haven't calmed down yet. You're focused on the Jiyu family and Feng Jiuqing, so I didn't want to say it to disturb your mind. The Xianming sect's reputation in the Jianghu and the imperial court has never been good. I know that you don't like these sinister and cunning people who kill the innocent, so that was why she hesitated for so long. She only dared to help her behind her back, but did not have the courage to tell her the truth. Shen Yueji looked at her sad and self-reproachful look and was about to open her mouth to comfort her. Those were all thoughts of the past. Now, people were changing, and everything was changing. She was someone who had died once, so she no longer had those thoughts. Just as he was about to speak, he suddenly spat out a mouthful of blood. His vomit landed on Lu Qingrou's collar. Chapter 651. Her expression changed immediately. Qin left protector, come and have a look. What happened to Qin In the imperial study room. The young man gently held the cold corpse in his arms. His affectionate gaze never left her pale and beautiful face. His dark eyes were locked on her plain little face. He smiled and said, Qin he killed the woman I love the most. Now, I want him to have a taste of what it feels like to kill the woman he loves. As soon as he finished speaking, he suddenly extended a finger towards his white throat and forcefully pointed at it. He coughed loudly, and a black pill was spat out from his mouth. It fell to the ground and turned into a puddle of black dirty water. His black eyes slowly changed color and became scarlet again. It should have been a fearful color, but he was as gentle as water. His gentle and affectionate look was not comparable to his red eyes at all. If his red eyes were said to have come out from a pool of blood, he should have been cold-blooded and cruel with his hands stained with blood. But when he faced the woman in his arms, it seemed that all the changes in the world could not compare to the woman lying quietly. His eyes, sight, and heart were all filled with her. There was no room for anything else in this world. His affectionate look made people feel that he was not a cruel emperor, but a helpless and affectionate person in front of the woman he loved. Because he was hugging a dead person. There was no warmth, There was no feeling, she did not know. She did not know that he was hugging her. She did not know how long he had been by her side. She did not know that what he said to her was true and his love for her was also true. He had always kept his word. He said that all the prosperity in the world could not compare to her sweet smile. He also said that he did not want to be a good emperor. He only wanted to be a good husband for her. To accompany her to experience the prosperity of the world, to hold hands with her and grow old together. In 3 days, it will be the Street Lantern Festival in the capital. In the past, we often went to see it together. You don't know how happy I am. China, it's almost time. There are still 3 days left. Am I really going to miss it this year? You also promised me that you would accompany me to watch the Capital Street Lantern Festival every year until we are old. You still want me to carry you on my back, Anne. There were tears in the corners of his eyes, but the man smiled slightly, forcing the 2 lines of clear tears back. His expression was so gentle that even when the wind blew, it could not blow away his peerless appearance that was as gentle as water. His hand slowly reached out to her hand. Her little hand was cold without any warmth, and her limbs were about to become incomparably stiff. He could only hold her like this. The spirit pearl was about to lose its effectiveness. There were only 3 months left, and 2 months had already passed. Her corpse could no longer be preserved like before, it could no longer be preserved without rotting. He knew that Kong Yin was lying to him. No one could come back from the dead. She wouldn't come back to life at all. He was just listening to that man's words. He was just delaying him so that he wouldn't go crazy again. Holding her hand, Feng Joching hugged the girl's corpse tightly in his arms. Qin even if it's the last month, I will avenge you. My Qin you can't die so unjustly. Chapter 652. A scream resounded through the sky. In the cold palace. As if she had a nightmare, Jiyu Yuyin screamed and woke up from her dream. The scenery outside was already dark. In a place like the cold palace, there were no palace maids or eunuchs who would light the lamps for her. Even when she had nightmares, there were no nannies or maids who would come to comfort her, or comfort her when she was frightened. But now, she woke up from her nightmare. There was thunder outside, and everything in the cold palace was dark and damp. No one lit the lamps, and there was nothing. When lightning struck down, she could even see the abandoned furnishings in the cold palace. Even so, she had cursed Yu Yin to improve them. Although he had done a good job, what kind of place was the cold palace? It was not qualified to be compared to her auspicious palace. Yu Yin, where are you? Where are you? After waking up from her sleep, she finally understood why she felt uneasy. In the past 2 days when she was banished to the cold palace, she had nightmares, but as long as she woke up from them, the lights in the cold palace would always be on, and the man would always be by her side, looking at her. His expressionless face was full of affection. But now, there was nothing. The main hall of the cold palace was empty. The dark and damp inner hall was not clean to begin with, and it had rained a lot this time. Amidst the lightning and thunder, she could still see the faint shadows of dead people. There were countless concubines who had died in the cold palace. Many women had died in this place, and it had a long history. But she knew. Yu Yin, where are you? Where are you, bastard? Are you planning to betray me too? Is that right? You bastard, have you forgotten what you promised me? You said it, you will never betray me, you said it. You liar. But this time, no matter how she shouted, no matter how she cursed, no one responded to her. The only response was the thunder outside, louder and louder. Amidst the lightning and thunder, she could still hear strange sounds outside, making her so afraid that she curled up on the ground. She did not know where the lights were. Even though lightning struck down and there was a moment of light in the cold palace, she still did not dare to move. She was afraid. She was truly afraid. For the first time in her life, she felt so helpless. Her father was dead, and Murongyun, that bitch, was about to die. The power of the Jiyu family seemed to have changed overnight. She was no longer the most favored daughter of the Jiyu family. Even her big brother, who she had felt afraid of since she was a child, had never helped her during her time in the cold palace, let alone her life. That helplessness, the feeling of being abandoned by the world. It was as if the man's once gentle vow of eternal love was still floating in her ears. He said she was his empress, he wanted her to be his empress forever, but now in less than 3 months, he could cripple her for another woman. He knew that she had never been through any hardships since she was young. He knew that she was afraid of the dark and thunder, yet he locked her up in a place where people died. Yu Ying, come out quickly, Yu Ying. Where have you been? You bastard, I need you so much right now, but you still haven't come back. Chapter 653. Are you going to betray me like those people? Are you going to leave me? Are you going to betray me? You said it yourself. You said that no matter who saved you in the past, I am your master now. I have indeed helped you a lot. You said that you will always be loyal to me. You also said that your life is mine. You bastard, you can't go back on your words. Come back, Yu Ying. Rumble. Another bolt of lightning struck down. This time, the surroundings of the cold palace were illuminated even brighter by this bolt of lightning. It was so bright that the faintly discernible shadow that Jiyu Yuyin had just seen suddenly seemed to become real at this moment. The silhouette was floating in the air. Ah, ghost, ghost. Help, help. There's a ghost. Finally, she could no longer stay in the cold palace and rushed out without a care. She didn't know where she rushed to. It was pitch black everywhere. She covered her face, or rather, her eyes. The thunder outside was very loud, but the rain had lessened. She didn't dare to show her eyes, afraid that she would see something unclean. In the huge cold palace, there were piles of dead rats. Some of them were alive, some were dead, and some had died a long time ago. They had all turned into a pile of bones, and the rats were eating each other's flesh. There were even skeletons. It was a woman's head. She screamed in fear. She clearly didn't dare to look at those terrifying things, but she couldn't control her gaze. The thunder was very loud, and the wind was also very loud. She stumbled, and her feet were unstable. She didn't know what she had tripped over. There was a shocking sound. She looked down and saw a female corpse. This female corpse's appearance was already indistinguishable. She didn't know what it looked like, but from the gorgeous clothes, she could tell that the embroidery was excellent. She must have been a lady of status in the imperial harem. For the first time in her life, Jiyu Yuyin felt afraid. In the past, when she killed people, she had tortured them like this. But she was in Auspicious Harmony Palace, and Auspicious Harmony Palace was filled with servants and guards. She wasn't afraid at all. Now, in this huge and desolate cold palace, she was the only one left. She didn't know which was the exit. She ran aimlessly and shouted aimlessly, Yu Ying, where are you? Where are you? She didn't know how long she had been tossing and turning. In the cold palace, she was so tired that she was sweating profusely. Finally, she found the crimson door, which was as bright as fresh blood. It was covered with cobwebs, and there were even quite a few spiders coiled around it. A trace of a smile finally appeared on her face. Regardless of anything else, she rushed up and used her hands to tear off the thick layer of spider webs. Even the spiders on top were ruthlessly thrown to the ground by her and cruelly trampled to death. The door was locked from the outside, so she couldn't open it. She could only keep banging on the scarlet door. As she slapped the door, she shouted, "Open the door, open the door. I'm the Empress. I'm the Empress of the Feng Nation. My Jiyu family is powerful in the Feng Nation. How dare you treat me like this? Let me out, let me out. Open the door, open up." No matter how much she shouted, there was no response from the people outside. It was quiet. Other than the sound of thunder and rain, only her shrill voice could be heard echoing in the empty cold palace. "Let me out, let me out." She screamed until her voice was hoarse. Gradually, she lost her strength and her body went limp. Chapter 654. 2 streams of tears slowly slid down her pale cheeks, merging with the sweat on her forehead. She never thought that she, Jiyu Yuyin, would have such a day. Since she was young, her status in the Jiyu family was unparalleled. She was the apple of the Jiyu family's eye. Ever since she was young, she only had what she liked. Even if it was someone she didn't like, those people would give it to her to please her. Even Feng Joqing was the same. She liked this man and thought that this man liked her too. After all, he was so gentle to her. After an unknown amount of time, she was starving and cold. Her only strength to shout had disappeared. The dark red door was finally slowly opened from the outside. She raised her head abruptly and saw the red door being pushed open from the outside. Then, two young guards looked inside and accurately saw her lying in the water. The young girl was the youngest empress in the Feng country. She had only been the empress for a few months. Even if she was dressed in rags, it still couldn't hide her beauty. The two brothers were restless as they listened outside. They had been guarding the cold palace outside for several years. They had also touched many of the concubines who had been chased into the cold palace. The two of them were only willing. After all, the concubines who had been chased into the cold palace had no chance of making a comeback. Those who could become the emperor's concubines were all devastatingly beautiful. They had no backing. After entering the cold palace, they naturally had to rely on the two brothers to survive. The two brothers weren't afraid of being found out. As for Jiyu Yuyin, the two of them had been hesitating outside for a long time. After all, the youngest daughter of the Jiyu family wasn't like other women who were for them to play with. She was the daughter of the Jiyu family. Even if she had been abolished by the emperor and the Jiyu family had been through such a huge incident, her background was still there. They were still hesitating. What if Jiyu Yuyin had a chance of returning to the emperor's favor? Even if she didn't, the Jiyu family had already fallen. The two of them had been hesitating since the first day this woman had been locked up. Because when she was locked up, there was not the slightest hint of fear on her face. It was as if she had been plotting this for a long time, giving off the feeling that she could make a comeback at any time. This was also the reason why the two of them had hesitated for so long. If they knew that Yu Yin was by Jiyu Yuin's side before this, and that the reason why she wasn't afraid and fearful was all because of Yu Yin's existence, they would probably be glad that they had hesitated before. Otherwise, how would they still be able to live their carefree and happy lives now? They would probably be long dead. On the other hand, Jiyu Yuyin, the once high and mighty daughter of the Jiyu family, had now fallen to such a state. Looking at the little beauty like this, it really makes Big Brother's hearts ache. The man couldn't hold it in anymore. He rubbed his hands together and walked forward. His gaze landed on Jiyu Yuin's drenched body without restraint. Jiyu Yuyin fell into the water and watched as they approached her. It would be a lie to say that she wasn't afraid. Her hands were in the water, and she didn't know what she touched. Other than the cold and dirty water, there seemed to be a rat's corpse. The stench of decay assaulted her nostrils and it was sticky. She screamed in shock and hurriedly moved away from the pool. But because she had gotten up too quickly, she was dizzy and fell to the ground again. The two men quickly grabbed one of her arms. Chapter 655. In recent years, whether it's the late emperors or the emperors, I've tasted all the cold concubines in the harem, but I haven't tasted the empress yet. Impudent. Impudent. I am the empress, the master of the harem, how dare you be so impudent? Let go of me, or I'll cut off your heads. The two men didn't take her threat seriously at all. Instead, they smiled and said, Your Highness, don't you know what situation you're in now? Do you know where this is? The Cold Palace. This is the Cold Palace of the Imperial Palace. Any concubine who is chased here has no chance of making a comeback. You've already been abandoned by the emperor and become an abandoned concubine in the harem. Why? Are you still thinking about the possibility of regaining your favor? To tell you the truth, the women who are chased here have no chance of making a comeback. No. Even if I have no chance of making a comeback, I'm still a daughter of the Jiyu family. My Jiyu family hasn't fallen yet. Even if my father is dead, the one who took over the position of Prime Minister is my big brother. If you dare to touch me, my big brother will definitely not let you off. The two men seemed to have heard something funny. They suddenly raised their heads and laughed out loud. Your big brother? To tell you the truth, from the first day you were locked up in the cold palace, we've been observing the movements of the GU family. If your big brother really cared about you, do you think you'd still be in a place like the cold palace? I'm afraid you'd have been brought back to the GU family. Little beauty, don't resist. Just serve us in the cold palace. You should know that we've been drooling over you for a long time. As long as you're obedient, don't worry, we'll definitely treat you well. Gu Yuyin knew better than anyone that they wouldn't really treat her well. When she was the empress, she knew that there were two beastly guards in the cold palace who specialized in abusing the concubines who were chased into the cold palace. Even though she knew about the situation in the cold palace, she still pretended not to know anything. Those concubines were all the emperor's women. She was so selfish. How could she allow those women who were chased into the cold palace to live a peaceful life? So, therefore, she allowed them to be arrogant in the cold palace. She even ordered people to protect them in secret and not let the emperor know about the cold palace. However, Gu Yuyin never expected that such a thing would happen to her today. She kept struggling, but she had been hungry for a long time. Even if she had the strength, she might not be a match for them. Her struggle and resistance were even more challenging for a man. Seeing that they were laughing heartily and proudly, he carried her on his shoulder with one hand and headed towards the bedroom of the cold palace. Ha 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 ha, this is the first time I've had a taste of the empress. Big brother, be gentle. This empress is delicate and weak. She can't be compared to those women in the cold palace. We have to play well. Don't kill her. Don't worry, little brother. Your big brother has always been very gentle to women. As long as the empress is obedient and satisfies us in this cold palace, we are willing to let her live a little longer. Beast. Beasts. You bastards. Bastards. Let me go. Let me go. I'm going to kill you all. Let me go. Chapter 656. Ha ha ha. Why don't you think about where you are? Beauty, even if you scream your lungs out, no one will come to save you. Huayang Palace Shen Yueji was woken up by a noisy noise. Her vision was blurry because she had just woken up, and the sky outside was already dark. She saw that Lu Qingrou's thin and weak body was standing straight, and standing in front of her was a man dressed in white, elegant like a celestial being. Feng Jiuqing's face was handsome, but it wasn't as gentle as before. His handsome face was tense, and his pitch-black eyes were filled with sharpness when they landed on Lu Qingrou. Your Majesty, is it not enough to use your thoughts on the Jiyu family, and now you want to use Jie? Since you want to get rid of her so much, why not directly start with the Shen family? It's much more convenient. Why do you need to go through so much trouble to use your thoughts on her? Concubine Ru, recently, you have been looking down on me. Feng Jiuqing looked at her indifferently, and wanted to pass her. I am here to take Yu Ji back. As for Lu Qingru, she wasn't afraid of him in the slightest. She blocked his path and said, I've already said that Jia was injured. If it wasn't for you, Your Majesty, how could Jia have been injured and almost lost her life? This matter, I will go back and investigate clearly. Yu Ji is my woman, it is not up to you to make decisions here. Seeing that the emperor was about to get angry, at this time, Lu Qingru could not get any benefits at all. Shen Yueji did not dare to continue lying down, deeply afraid that they would cause another conflict. She struggled to get up from the bed. Your Majesty. Hearing her weak voice, the two of them turned to look at her. Feng Jiuqing took a step forward, walked to the bed, and hugged her in his arms. Is there anything else? I will bring you back, and order Kongying to help you cure the Jiyu. Lu Qingru sneered disdainfully. The Jiyu in Jia's body was clearly planted by him. If he did not collude with Nanyu's Qingxian, how could Yu Ji be poisoned? If it was not discovered in time, it would be very difficult to save her. Now that he was pretending to be deeply in love, this was really Feng Jiuqing's usual style. Lu Qingru was still a little worried about Shen Yueji. She looked at her and believed that as long as Shen Yueji said even half a word that she was not willing to go back with Feng Jiuqing, Shen Yueji would absolutely not hesitate to pay any price to make her stay. Even if confronting Feng Zhouqing now did not bring her the slightest benefit, as long as Shen Yueji could stay, as long as it was what she hoped for, even if she had to put her life on the line, she would be willing. Unfortunately, Shen Yueji only responded with a reassuring look. She knew what Shen Yueji meant. Because of her comforting words, the flame in her heart was forcefully extinguished. To be honest, she treasured every moment she had with Ji, but her Ji could never belong to her. She could only watch as Shen Yueji was carried away by Feng Zhouqing. Why did the holy maiden tell noble consort Shen your identity? If she colludes with the emperor of the Feng kingdom, you will be in great danger. If Feng Zhouqing knew that she was the holy maiden of the northern underworld Shenming cult, she did not know what he would do. In short, for the holy maiden to return to the northern underworld safely, it would not be an easy task. Lu Qingrou's expression was blank. She did not know when the left protector had appeared behind her, but there was no extra expression on her indifferent face. Left protector, you know that I have never rejected Jia's requests. So what if she knows my identity? I did not want to hide it from her. Chapter 657. Even if, she suddenly smiled. Even if she colludes with Feng Zhouqing, even if she tells Feng Zhouqing my identity, I won't have any complaints, if that's what she wants. However, she knew that her Jia wouldn't do that. Her Jia wouldn't betray her and wouldn't bear to hurt her, so she trusted her. She didn't want to hide it from her. Once she knew, she felt relieved. She didn't know why, but that feeling made her feel unprecedentedly at ease. Feng Zhouqing carried her all the way to Feng Qi Palace. They didn't take a carriage. During this period, they met many women in the harem, but the men ignored them. Shen Yueji could feel their eyes on her, full of jealousy and envy. Originally, they thought that without Jiyu Yuyin, everyone knew that Jiyu Yuyin was favored in the harem. Now that she was gone, the emperor's thoughts should fall on them. Maybe he would favor one of them. But they didn't expect that without Jiyu Yuyin, there would be another Shen Yueji. And looking at the situation, the emperor's care for Shen Guifei was completely higher than Jiyu Yuyin. Even when facing Jiyu Yuyin, he didn't hug her so wantonly. In the imperial palace, there was such a scene where he didn't care about others. Just like newlyweds, they only had each other. After returning to Feng Qi Palace, the man came over and asked Kong Yin to feel her pulse. After feeling her pulse, Kong Yin's serious face slowly relaxed. Your Majesty, the Phoenix Jiyu in Imperial concubine Shen's body has been removed. Removed? The man seemed a little surprised. He looked at Shen Yueji. Shen Yueji looked down and didn't speak. Yes, I have felt your pulse. The Phoenix Jiyu in your body is indeed gone. Maybe it's because the Phoenix Jiyu in your body has been removed, so your body is a little weak. In addition, you have injuries, so it's inevitable that you look a little listless. You just need to rest for a few days. The Phoenix Jiyu in my body was removed by Imperial concubine Ru. Your Majesty, you know that Feng Zhouqing didn't need Shen Yueji to say more. He knew exactly what she was talking about. He held Shen Yueji's hand and didn't speak for a long time. Instead, he looked at Kong Yin. Kong Yin tactfully found an excuse and left. The man held her hand tightly. Yuji, do you trust me? Besides ridicule, there was nothing else in her heart. She faintly smiled. What is the emperor saying? As long as your Majesty says it, this concubine will naturally believe it. We know of Southern Mountain's Phoenix Peacock, but the person who will accompany you to the Imperial Garden today is not us, but him. After a while, he continued, although I don't know why he could hide his red eyes. The man who accompanied me to the Imperial Garden today was him and not you, Your Majesty, but the one who cooperated with Nan you should be you, Your Majesty, right? Feng Zhouqing did not deny it. That's right, it was us. Your Majesty knows that the Southern Peak Emperor is cruel and heartless and goes back on his word. The people of the Southern Peak Emperor are complaining to the heavens. Why do you still want to cooperate with such a cruel and heartless emperor? How would this benefit Your Majesty? Although the identity of the Dark North Emperor is unknown, at least he treats his people well. Even if there is cooperation, It should be the Emperor working with the Dark North Emperor to fight Southern Peak together, and not Southern Peak against the Dark North Emperor. Chapter 658. Your Majesty, aren't you afraid that the Emperor of Nanyu will take this opportunity to send troops to attack the Feng Kingdom? Yu-ji, the harem is not allowed to interfere in politics. Chunxie naturally knows that the Hugong cannot interfere in politics, but Chunxie needs to speak her opinion. Just like how Chunxie believes Your Majesty, when Chunxie says that the man who brought Chunxie to the Imperial Garden today was him and not you, Your Majesty. Seeing that Feng Zhouqing had stopped talking, she said, Your Majesty is the ruler of a country. You have your reasons to say and do whatever you want. However, Your Majesty, I suddenly feel tired. I wonder if the promise Your Majesty made to me still stands. Of course it does. What do you want, Yu-ji? Just say it. I want to leave the palace. I don't want to be the imperial concubine of the Feng Kingdom anymore. I want to return to the general's mansion and have nothing to do with Your Majesty in the future. Her words caused the man to instantly become silent. The gentle smile on his face no longer existed. He just looked at her for a long time. He was silent and speechless for a long time. Leave the palace. Leave him. Leave the palace. From now on, they have nothing to do with each other. Feng Zhouqing didn't know how he felt when he heard this. He only knew that he felt suffocated for a short time. Because of her words, he felt as if he had lost his soul for a long time. Then, he smiled and touched Shen Yuji's head. His action was still as gentle as water. Imperial concubine, don't talk nonsense. You should know that I won't let you go now. But Your Majesty, I'm tired. I don't want to be the imperial concubine of the harem anymore. Your Majesty was right. I just wanted to enter the palace because of the novelty. Now, I suddenly realized that the life outside the palace is more suitable for me. And my future husband will never be you, Your Majesty. Taking advantage of the fact that she hadn't slept with him yet, she still had a pure body. With the power of the Shen family, even if she left the palace, there would be no lack of outstanding young men from aristocratic families to marry her. Moreover, she already had a man she liked. Revenge or not, to her, was no longer important, especially since she already knew the truth of what had happened back then. She found out that she and Feng Zhouqing had never slept together, and that the two of them had never had a child of their own. The only person who had ever mistreated her and made her feel indignant was already dead. He must have known about Murong Yun's death in the prison a long time ago. It was all because of a woman. Ever since Jiyu Wei's death, she had become insignificant. In addition, she had been unconscious for a period of time, causing her to miss out on this piece of news. Jiyu Yuyin had also received the punishment she deserved. In the Cold Palace, there would naturally be someone who would help her get rid of her. Your Majesty, please agree to let this concubine out of the palace. From now on, no matter if it was Feng Zhouqing or that man, she didn't want to have any contact with them. What did it have to do with her whose hands the Feng Kingdom ended up in? The man's face became cold. He suddenly got up and stood with his back facing her for a long time. Guifei is tired, rest early. Your Majesty, that person wants to hurt me. You said yourself that you can no longer suppress his existence. Your Majesty, do you want to watch me die at his hands? With me here, no one can hurt you, including her. Yueji, believe in me. Shen Yueji suddenly smiled. Your Majesty, are you willing to leave a woman who has no feelings for you in this palace? Chapter 659. That's right. This sentence made the man's tall and straight body suddenly freeze. She could die for him and do everything for him, but she had never said that she loved him. Feng Zhouqing narrowed his eyes slightly and turned to look at her. Yueji, what are you talking about? This concubine entered the palace because the Prince Regent had rejected this concubine for a long time. This concubine had no choice but to find another way to test the Prince Regent. Just as Your Majesty believes, this concubine has never liked Your Majesty. Seeing the man's pitch-black eyes suddenly become extremely sharp, Shen Yueji was not afraid at all. Shen Yueji was not afraid at all. I don't want to probe anymore. I want to go back. The reason why I personally cooked for your majesty was because it was fresh. As for why I saved your majesty is the ruler of Feng country. If anything happens to you, what will happen to the citizens of Feng country? Her chin was lifted by the man's strong hand, and she was forced to meet his dark and rolling eyes. Shen Yueji was not afraid at all. Your majesty, I have never liked you. Now I don't even have this fresh feeling, so I beg your majesty, for the sake of my Shen family's hard work, to agree to this request of mine. Feng Zhouqing really had never tasted the feeling of being rejected. Never. But Shen Yueji's seemingly light words suppressed him for a long time. He looked at her dark red lips and felt a rush of heat in his head. Suddenly, he wanted to kiss her. Probably because she did not expect that he would suddenly kiss her, Shen Yueji was shocked. When she reacted, she quickly freed her chin from his hand and turned her neck to the side. His kiss fell firmly on one side of her face. It was cold, without any warmth or touch. It was like a drop of rain falling on her face. After a long time, she felt the traces of moisture. The man quickly chuckled softly. Have a good rest, don't say such nonsense. I can take it that this is all your willfulness and nonsense. I will not argue with you. Also, don't think about leaving me. If I leave you to return to the residence, it will be impossible in this lifetime. You can only stay in the palace and accompany me forever. Feng Zhouqing gently smoothed the hair on her forehead to the back of her head. He looked at her and said, if Yu Ji doesn't like the boring life in the imperial palace, we can take some time to accompany you out of the palace to play. If you want to stay in the manor for a few more days, we will agree to it. What do you think? Seeing that Shen Yueji was no longer speaking, he chuckled and kissed her lightly on the lips. Be good, I will go to the imperial study first. You rest well and don't think too much. After Feng Zhouqing left, Shen Yueji wiped the traces off her face. She looked up and saw a man sitting not too far away. Hong Fui's gaze fell on her for a moment. Have you thought it through? What? I was almost fooled by you. Seeing that Shen Yueji was silent, Hong Fui sneered. In fact, you already knew about the phoenix peacock from Nanyu, right? So when you were playing the flute in Qingxian, your mind was already wandering. It looked like you were watching the phoenix peacock dance, but in fact, your attention and eyes were not on them. Not only did you lie to me, you even lied to Lu Qingru. Woman, I found out that if you really want to play some tricks, you really can fool people around in circles. Shen Yueji was not surprised that he knew that she lied to him. Chapter 660. Instead, she continued to wipe away the touch that the man left on her face when he left. Because I have figured it out. I want to leave the palace. I don't want to stay in the palace any longer. I have to find a suitable reason. It just so happened that Feng Zhouqing was cooperating with the people of Southern Mountain, and the phoenix peacock came in handy. She knew that there were two souls living in Feng Zhouqing's body, and the other soul could not wait for her to die. From the moment he came to take her to the Imperial Garden today, she had recognized that there was something wrong with this man. Because when he spoke to her, it was completely different from the conversations she had with Feng Zhouqing. He was deliberately pretending to be gentle, just like in the depths of his eyes, there was hatred in the gentleness towards her. He was not like Feng Zhouqing, who was as gentle as water and only knew how to scheme, but his hatred was so obvious. From that moment, she knew that he was himself and not the real Feng Zhouqing. However, it was good that she did this for the sake of being with Mo Wushang in the future. When Hong Fui thought about it, he did not feel angry anymore. At least this woman had a little conscience and knew how to love Mo Wushang. Based on the current situation, Feng Zhouqing won't let you off so easily. Shen Yueji, will you be moved? No matter what, this Feng Zhouqing is still a gentleman and treats you very well. As long as you obediently stay in the palace, according to my understanding of him, he will definitely treat you very well. In addition, with your Shen family's position in the court, I think the emperor also has the intention to ensure that your Shen family's position in the court will not fall in the future. For an ambitious and calculating man, this is already the biggest concession and is also a kind of special honor for your Shen family. Aren't you Mo Wushang's friend? Why? Aren't you afraid that I will really be moved by your words and abandon him to be with the emperor? Will you? Based on my observation and understanding of you in the past few days, your feelings for the emperor are far less than Mo Wushang's. He saw Shen Yueji get up. He also followed. Where are you going? The cold palace. It's time to put an end to it. Jiyu Yuyin, the proud daughter of heaven, suffered inhumane torture in the cold palace. Even if it was only for a day or two, it was enough to make her wish she was dead. She just wanted to see her at this time. He was afraid that the person she didn't want to see the most right now was him. I'll go with you. A place like the cold palace is quite dangerous. Otherwise, let Ji Chu come with me. I have another matter that I need your help with. What is it? You know what I promised Li Yingying. I want Li Yarrow dead. Bring Li Yingying back to the Li mansion and let her personally take revenge. All right. The man didn't hesitate at all. Since you said so, I'll help you. Take care of yourself while I'm not in the palace. Although Jiyu Yuyin isn't a threat to you right now, you still need to be on guard against Feng Jiuqing. I know. When Double Happiness came in with tea and snacks to see her, her eyes were red and swollen from crying. Shen Yueji saw it and looked up at her. Why are you crying like this? Niang Niang, it's great that you're fine. This servant was truly worried that something had happened to you. At that time, I wouldn't be able to explain myself to the general and madam. Her crying and true feelings made Shen Yueji's heart soften. She knew that she was not worried about not being able to explain to her mother and father, but really worried about herself. Chapter 661. After all, they had lived together for so long that she had long regarded her as her family. In order to ease the heavy atmosphere in the air, Shen Yueji smiled slightly. Are you worried about me, or are you afraid that if something happens to me, you won't be able to answer to father and mother when they find out? Your Highness, of course this servant is worried about you. We have been together for so many years, how can you not know what this servant is thinking? Don't worry, I'm fine. Your Highness. Shuangxi grabbed her hand worriedly. You don't know how worried this servant was about you. I was deeply afraid that something would happen to you. This Gu of the Phoenix and Peacock is enough to make a person powerless to return to heaven. Even if it was an immortal, it would be difficult to save your Highness. Fortunately, concubine Ru helped, otherwise, she couldn't imagine the consequences. Niang Niang, His Majesty is too much. At first, this servant thought that His Majesty was treating you sincerely, but I didn't expect. Don't you know that His Majesty has two personalities? There are two souls living in his body. But the person who wants to harm you, your Highness, is the Emperor who is usually so gentle to you. In this world, there are many things that are not true just because you see it with your own eyes. Shuangxi, the person who wants to harm me is actually another person. He is just pretending to be the Emperor, and his red eyes have turned into black eyes. In fact, he is not the Emperor at all. Your Highness, what do you mean? Speaking of which, it was indeed a little ridiculous. Perhaps, there was really no fate between her and Feng Jiuqing. Once, it was him who wanted to harm her, and now, it was another him who wanted to harm her. No matter what, she would die in his hands. I want to go to the Cold Palace to see Jiyu Yuyin. Your Highness, according to what you said, the two guys in the Cold Palace molested Jiyu Yuyin yesterday. I guess Jiyu Yuyin wants to die now. If your Highness goes to see her at this time, it will undoubtedly make her wish she was dead. Yes, it's time to end things. Jiyu Yuyin was the last person she wanted to put an end to. In the past, she had always tolerated and indulged this younger sister of hers. No matter what she did wrong, even if she humiliated or scolded her, she would always excuse her in her heart. She always felt that she was still young and immature. When she grew up, she would know how to cherish her older sister and how good she was to her. But she waited and waited for so many years. What did she get in the end? The so-called blood is thicker than water. At the end of the day, is nothing more than a self-deceiving joke. In the imperial power and influence, everyone was pursuing what they wanted. Once they climbed to a high position, they would be able to get what they wanted. These so-called family ties were so insignificant that they were not worth mentioning. Everyone was doing it for themselves. Everyone was doing it for themselves, but unfortunately, he never understood it. Within the cold palace, there were cobwebs everywhere. Perhaps it was because of the heavy rain that had just fallen. The cold palace, which was already dark and damp, seemed even more devoid of young energy. Outside the Vermilion Gate, there were also cobwebs. Shun Yueji saw the two brothers guarding outside. Perhaps it was because they stayed in a place like the cold palace all year round. The two men guarding the cold palace were tall and burly, but their skin was frighteningly pale. It was a kind of bloodless white. You're tuning in to the Dreamy Chapters YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.